Before we lock the doors and turn off the lights, do me a favor and hit that like button and leave a comment down below because what we are about to discuss is going to fundamentally change how you look at the people you call your friends. And the algorithm needs to know that there are still people out there who value hard truths over comforting lies. Now, close your eyes and picture the scenario. It has been 72 hours since the grid went down. The romantic phase of the blackout is over. The ice in the freezer has melted into a pool of lukewarm blood and water. The house is beginning to smell of stale air and unwashed bodies, and the silence outside is no longer peaceful. It is heavy, suffocating, and punctuated only by the occasional, terrifying crack of a gunshot blocks away or the sound of breaking glass. You are sitting in your living room, counting your canned goods by the light of a single candle when you hear it. The knocking. It's not the aggressive pounding of Raider. It's the desperate, rhythmic tapping of your neighbor, the nice guy from across the street who borrowed your lawnmower last summer. He's calling your name, his voice thin with panic, asking if you have any extra water for his kids. In this moment, your greatest threat isn't the cold or the hunger or the armed gangs roaming the highway. It is the disintegration of the polite fictions that hold society together, the social contract, that invisible agreement that says we help our neighbors and share our burdens, has just expired, and maintaining it will cost you your life. Most people prepare for the looting stranger, but almost no one prepares for the parasitic friend. Today, we are going to dismantle your conditioning, strip away the weakness of empathy, and show you how to solve the problem of the human element using nothing but household items, basic physics, and a refusal to be a victim. The first step in securing your psychological perimeter is establishing an information firewall, because in a collapse, panic is more contagious than any virus, and your primary vectors for this infection is the archetype I call the talker. This is the person in your group or neighborhood who cannot handle the silence and fills it with rumors, unverified terror, and hysteria. Your tool here is a simple AM, FM radio and a strict protocol I call the 48-hour rule. When the crisis hits, you take that radio, your only link to the outside world, and you become the sole gatekeeper of information. You do not let the talker spin the dial. You explicitly tell your group that for the first 48 hours, any news that isn't directly observed by your own eyes or confirmed on an official emergency broadcast is treated as a lie. You isolate the talker physically if you have to, perhaps assigning them to a room where they can monitor a specific frequency that you know is dead air. The magic here is in the suppression of the feedback loop. By cutting off the source of rumor, you lower the collective heart rate of your group, preserving not just sanity, but the actual caloric burn that comes from high-stress hyperventilation. The expert edge is to treat information like water. You ration it, you purify it, and you only dispense it when it serves a survival purpose. Next, we need to address the physical security of your home against the archetype known as the moral philosopher, the neighbor who believes you have an ethical obligation to share your supplies until you both starve. To counter this, you need to employ the gray man fortress strategy using black trash bags, duct tape, and a cardboard box. Your windows are the eyes of your house, and if they show light or movement, they signal resources. You are going to tape those black bags over every single window pane, not just to block light, but to make the house look abandoned, derelict, and utterly devoid of value. But the real secret weapon here is the cardboard box, which we will turn into a charity cache. You place this box on your front porch or near your perimeter, containing a very small amount of low-value items, a few bottles of questionable water, some expired canned goods, maybe a ragged blanket. When the moral philosopher comes knocking with their guilt trip, you point to the empty box and say, "We already gave everything we had to the last group. We are starving too." You don't argue ethics, you simulate poverty. The psychology here is profound. Predators and our parasites alike are looking for a return on investment, and by presenting a facade of destitution, you make yourself an unworthy target. Inside the house, you will likely be dealing with Tactical Timmy, the guy who bought all the camouflage gear and rifles but has zero noise discipline. This person is a magnet for violence because he desperately wants to project power. Your solution involves heavy wool blankets and a distinct stripping of status. You need to take those heavy blankets and staple or nail them over the door frames and hallways to create sound dampeners. A house in lockdown must be a library, not a barracks. You then look Tactical Timmy in the eye and you strip him of his noisy, clanking gear. You tell him that his rifle is too loud for the suburbs and that his Velcro pouches are a dinner bell for snipers. You reassign him to a static, silent watch post at the back of the house away from the street. The physics behind this is simple acoustics. Sound travels through floorboards and thin drywall effortlessly. By dampening the house and silencing the loudmouth, you vanish from the auditory landscape of the threat. The pro tip here is that silence is actually a form of armor. If they can't hear you, they don't know you're there to kill. You will also encounter the optimist, the most dangerous biological threat in your circle, because they believe everything will be back to normal by Monday. This belief makes them lazy with hygiene and careless with security. To handle them, you need a bottle of bleach, a plastic sheet, and a ruthless application of the germ theory of disease. You're going to set up a quarantine zone at the entrance of your home using that plastic sheet. You force the optimist to go through a decontamination ritual every single time they enter. Shoes off, hands washed with a bleach solution, gear wiped down. You frame this not as fear, but as a medical necessity. The optimist will try to bypass this because they think you are overreacting. You must be unyielding. You explain that in a grid-down scenario, a simple bout of dysentery from unwashed hands is a death sentence. The magic isn't just the bleach killing the bacteria, it's the ritual killing their denial. By forcing them to physically enact a survival protocol, you are breaking their delusion of normalcy. Then there is the issue of the dependent, the person who contributes nothing but consumes precious resources. You cannot afford dead weight, so you must implement caloric triage using a simple notebook and a kitchen scale. You are going to write down every single calorie that comes into the house and every calorie that goes out. You explain to the dependent that this is a closed thermodynamic system. You assign them binary tasks, jobs that have a simple yes or no outcome, like fill these 5 buckets with rainwater or sort these beans from the rice. If they fail or complain, you show them the notebook. You show them the math that proves they are costing the group days of life. You don't get angry, you get mathematical. If they cannot produce, their rations are cut to the metabolic minimum. This shifts the dynamic from you being a mean leader to them fighting against the laws of physics. The expert edge is realizing that hunger is a fantastic motivator for competence. Once they realize the free ride is over, you will be amazed at how quickly they learn to be useful. We also have to deal with the pack rat, the hoarder, who refuses to let go of sentimental items that clog up your limited living space and hinder mobility. Your tool here is a stopwatch and a backpack. You are going to force the pack rat to undergo a mobility test. You have them pack their essential bag, including all those knickknacks they think they need, and you make them walk up and down the stairs or around the yard for 20 minutes. When they collapse or slow to a crawl, you start purging their gear. You take out the heavy photo albums, the extra pair of boots they might need, and the decorative junk. You explain that in survival, space and speed are life, and inertia is death. You replace their sentimental attachment with the visceral physical pain of carrying dead weight. It's a harsh lesson, but it anchors their mind in the reality of their physical limitations rather than their emotional wants. Finally, we must address the nostalgist, the person who drags down morale by constantly talking about the good old days, acting as an emotional anchor that stops the group from adapting. Your solution is a kitchen timer and a protocol I call structured grief. You gather the group and you set that timer for 15 minutes each evening. During those 15 minutes, everyone is allowed to cry, to tell stories about their favorite restaurants, to mourn the world that is gone. But the second that timer dings, the past is legally forbidden. All conversation must switch to the future, plans for water collection, security, shifts, and food rationing. You redirect the nostalgist's energy by giving them a production goal that mimics a comfort, like tasking them with roasting dandelion roots to make a coffee substitute. The psychological mechanism here is compartmentalization. You are allowing the grief to exist so it doesn't fester, but you are containing it within a strict temporal box so it doesn't infect the group's will to survive. Ultimately, survival is not about having the most expensive gear or the biggest gun. It is about the ruthlessness of your mindset and the efficiency of your resource management. You have to understand that the neighbor you waved to for 10 years was never really your friend. They were just a circumstance of geography, and in a world without law, they are a liability. You are building a new society inside your home, one where trust is earned through sweat and competence, not given away freely because of social pressure. Now, look around your house again. The windows are blacked out. The charity cash is on the porch. The talker is monitoring static, and your group is silent, working, and alive. You aren't waiting for rescue anymore because you realize that you are the rescue. The world outside is chaos, but in here, you have order because you had the courage to put physics over feelings. You have successfully transitioned from a victim of circumstance to the master of your domain. You have hardened your home, but have you hardened your heart enough to do what is necessary when your own family breaks these rules? Survival is a cold equation, and the variables are always changing. I want you to go to the comments right now and tell me which of the archetypes I mentioned today is currently living in your house, and do you have the guts to cut them off if the grid goes down? Hit like, subscribe, and stay sharp because the storm is coming, and niceness is the first thing you're going to run out of.